we have a new #1 open source model. This is incredibly intelligent and performant, and it's as good as the top closed models out there. So in this video, I'm going to go over all the cool things you can do with it, and I'm going to show you how to use it. Plus, we're going to go over its specs and performance benchmarks. Let's jump right in. Thanks to HubSpot for sponsoring this video. The model is called GLM5 by ZAI, and this is currently the best open source model you can use right now. Best of all, it's free for you to try out, so simply go to z.ai and you'll see this chat interface just like Gemini and ChatGPT, and then at the top here you should be able to access the latest GLM5. Let's jump right in with some demos. The really cool thing is it also has this agent capability which can help you do a really complex multi-step task all autonomously. It can do web search, it can use multiple tools at its disposal to carry out a plan step by step. Let me just show you a quick example. Here, let's make a fun educational course on chemistry for kids, consisting of multiple lessons. Include real images and interactive visual exercises. And yes, we are going to select agent and then press generate. And here's what we get. Now let's go over the agent process first. It first makes a to-do list. So first it needs to plan the chemistry course structure with multiple kid-friendly lessons, and then generate engaging chemistry images, and then build out the lessons and exercises, add interactive visual exercises, and then test and finalize the application. So it's planning out everything and then proceeding to do all these tasks. So it has done the first two, now it's moving on to this one, and then it's building all these files in this sandbox environment with all these pages, and finally it has done everything and now it's testing for any issues. And then afterwards, here is our result. Now, if you don't use this agent and you use the regular chat, then you can only create like one page at a time, but with the agent feature, it can create multiple pages in a sandbox environment. So that's the advantage of agent. Let's actually go through this. I'm going to click on this button to open this in a new tab. All right, here's lesson 1, and note that the other lessons are locked. So I need to complete lesson 1 before I can move on to the next lesson. Let's click on start, and here's what lesson 1 looks like. It even creates some really nice images for us. And here, if I click on like the image generation step, I believe this is actually using ZAI's own image model called GLM image. So here's what I got from that. Next, let's click on start exercise, and then we got to complete this quiz. So let me complete this really quickly. You can see that the quiz works, plus everything is very interactive. The animations and the visuals look beautiful, and check out this really nice pop-up as well. Everything is very well designed. Let's click on next lesson, and then here's the next lesson. We are going to learn about atoms, and then here I can build my own atom. So let's build a hydrogen atom. I believe I need to add 1 neutron, 1 electron, and then 1 proton. Let's see if that is correct. Looks like there are 0 neutrons, so let's try again. Let's do this. All right, perfect. Next atom, let's build helium. I believe it's 2 protons, 2 electrons. As you can see, I suck at chemistry. It's supposed to be 2, 2, and 2. All right. Next atom, let's build lithium. I have no idea what this is, so I'm just gonna click randomly. I think it's 3, 3, and 3. Oh my god, by the way, I failed chemistry in high school. Anyways, we have completed the lesson, so let's move on to the next lesson. Here, we are going to learn about elements. And as you can see, it generated some nice images. However, it's in Chinese, and the periodic table is kind of messed up. Let's start our exercise, and then here, this is an element matching game. So we need to click on each element and then match the correct symbol. So I'm just going to do this really quickly. Oxygen is O, gold is AU, carbon is C, and sodium is Na. Very nice. Everything works and it's designed very well, including the transitions and animations. Let's move on to the next lesson. Next, we are going to learn about molecules. And then let's build water. So we need 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, I believe. And then let's click on check molecule. And that is correct. Next molecule is salt, and so on and so forth. Let me just complete this really quickly. Now we're going to learn about states of matter, start exercise, and now we need to assign each item to the correct state. So pencil would be solid, rock is solid, juice would be liquid. You can see everything works. Like, it created this entire course from just one prompt. I didn't need to even prompt it further. That's how good this is. And that's it. All right, moving on to the last and final lesson. Now we have cool chemical reactions. So here's the lesson. Let's start exercise. Let's just randomly guess. All right. And there you go. And notice that after I completed the course, it also marks my progress here plus course completed at the top. So your progress is tracked, everything is designed beautifully, and again, it created all of this in just one prompt. Now, of course, you can prompt it further to add even more information and more courses, but now you can just prompt this AI to create educational content for your kids or yourself to learn. This can be customized and personalized to make you learn a lot faster. All right, let me start a new chat, and this time we are going to use Agent again. Now, I've already gotten the last version of GLM to code up an Android OS. That was way too easy, so this time, let's actually test its creativity. I want it to develop an OS for mobile that's even better than Android or iOS. Include 8 apps on the home screen, explain what you designed, how things work, and your rationale behind it. Let's press generate. And here's what we get. If we turn on this agent feature, then it first creates a to-do list and then it goes through each of these steps. So the first step is to design and plan this mobile OS concept with 8 unique apps. Then it's going to create the page. Then it's going to implement interactive app screens and smooth animations. Then it's going to document the rationale behind this. So first it plans out the design and then it codes everything up. And then now it's working on this enhance and polish UI with additional features. And after that's done, it's now documenting the design rationale. So let's go through this. First, here is what our mobile interface looks like. And here it has this smart summary at the top. Its rationale behind that is notification badges create anxiety. Instead, we should just have a smart summary, which gives us an intelligent overview instead of all those notifications. And then let's check out each of these apps. So we have Pulse, which basically tracks our health like this. Very cool. And then here it says it combines Apple Health and Fitbit into one dashboard. Why it's better? It's because Android or iOS health apps are fragmented. Pulse gives a unified health narrative. This includes like heart rate, sleep, weekly activity, etc. And then we also have this canvas feature. This is for drawing stuff. Okay. And then we have Nexus. So this is like your chatbot that lives inside your phone. Let's see if this actually works. So let's type in something like, what's my schedule today? All right, so this is just a dummy interface. It doesn't work, but here it says Nexus is your AI assistant, kind of like Siri or Google Assistant. But unlike those two, Nexus can act across all apps with full context. So it's kind of like what Apple promised, but never actually did. And then we also have this flow feature. This is like unified communications. So this groups all messages in one place, including SMS, email, calls, and socials. So I actually really like this idea. I hate having to switch between different platforms and apps and websites to see my communications from different people. But Flow just unifies everything together. My email, my DMs, my SMS, etc. And then we also have Vault, which is privacy and security. So let's click on this. And here's what we get. So here it says iOS privacy is good, but Vault makes it visual and actionable. And then we have Horizon, which is a smart context engine. So this has like today's weather and then the events that are scheduled today and then smart suggestions. So it's kind of like your agenda for today, which again, I would actually find very useful. And then we also have this mirror one, which is for digital well-being. So you can also turn on this focus mode to pause notifications. This tracks your usage for today and how much time you spent on each app. And then we also have this bridge one, which allows you to connect seamlessly to other devices. So it's kind of like AirDrop or iCloud. Very cool. So that was the overall design, and of course I can prompt this further to add more features, but overall this is a pretty good design and I do like the rationale. Let me know in the comments what you think. Alright, now those were 2 examples of agents. Now let's just use the regular chat. So this is supposed to be faster. You can use this if the task doesn't require like multiple steps or really long thinking. So here, let's test its ability to generate accurate physics and lighting. So we are going to develop a real-time simulation of 2 metallic spheres suspended above a street scene, allow adjustable parameters such as reflectivity, roughness, and other material properties of the sphere. Put everything in a standalone HTML file. Make sure it loads efficiently on a regular browser. Let's press generate. Alright, so here's what it gave me at first, but you can see this background is fake. It's still pretty cool how it's able to just code up this city night scene using basic shapes like this. But that's not what I want, so here I asked it to use a real real background that's publicly available. And afterwards, here's what I got, but you can see that I specifically asked it to generate two spheres to see if the sphere would reflect in each other, which it did not, so I had to prompt it to make sure the spheres reflect in each other. And then afterwards, here is my final result. So let me click on this button to expand this full width. All right, here's what we get. Let's play with sphere A. So let's play with the settings. Let's decrease metalness. So this is what happens. Very nice. And then let's play with roughness. So this is what happens. So that also works. And then let's play with clear coat. That also works. Very nice. And then we can also play with clear coat roughness, which does something like this. Very nice. And then what does IOR do? I have no idea what IOR does. And then let's test out reflectivity. Reflectivity also works. Very nice. And then down here, we can actually select some presets. So let's turn this into gold. And here's what we get. Notice that as I change this to yellow, its reflection on the other sphere is also changed. Very nice. And then let's change this to chrome. That also works. Copper, titanium, glass, and then obsidian. Now, instead of this street scene, I can also change this to other backgrounds. So let's try sunset. It has a very nice loading screen like this. And here's my result. Very nice. And then let's try the other sphere to make sure it works as well. So let's play with the metalness. So that also works. And then roughness, that also works. Very nice. Clear coat, that also works. And then clear coat roughness also works. Again, for IOR, I'm not sure what this does. And then reflectivity also works. Very cool. And then let's change this to something like red. And you can see the color is also applied to its reflection over here. So everything works in just 3 prompts. Very nice. All right, now GLM5 is multimodal, so you can even input different types of documents for it to analyze and output in different formats. For example, let's write you are a senior Wall Street analyst. From these earnings reports, make a consolidated spreadsheet of multiple tabs with financials, charts, growth forecast, and recommendations. And then I'm going to upload these Q4 earnings reports from Google, Nvidia, and Amazon. And then I'm going to turn on this agent mode because I think this will require multiple steps. Let's press generate. All right, and here's what we get. Now, since this is kind of squashed in this side window, I'm going to download the spreadsheet and open it on my computer. So first, it gives us a nice executive summary. I did check that all the numbers are correct. And then here is a financials tab, like I specified, with a ton of different key metrics, as you can see here. And then here are some charts. Here is the revenue and margin comparison, etc., etc. Note that everything is editable. I can move these charts around. I can change the numbers because this is, well, an Excel spreadsheet. And then here is some growth projections and forecast. And then finally, here are some recommendations with price target, upside potential, risk level, etc. It also gives us the bull case and bear case for each company. It even does like valuation metrics comparison, SWOT analysis. This is really good. And then for Alphabet, it does recommend strong buy. Note that this was like Q4 of 2024. And indeed, since that time, Google has gone up an insane amount. So anyways, you can easily just input any PDFs and get it to analyze it and convert that into like a document or a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation or anything else. This is a super flexible tool that works with different types of files. Or instead of getting it to analyze financials, let's get it to actually create a stock chart viewer. So let's write create a stock price chart visualizer with data from the attached file. And I'm going to attach this file from Yahoo Finance. These are the prices of Apple throughout all these years. And then allow me to set different ways to visualize, like line chart and candlesticks. Allow me to select a past date and replay it. Add moving average, RSI, and other indicators. And this is pretty simple, so I'm just going to use chat and then press send. All right, here's what I got. Now, this is quite compact, so let me expand this in a new tab, and let's play around with this. Let's see if line chart works, so that works. Candlestick also works. And then here's the moving average. It even includes like the 5, 10, 20, and 60-day moving averages, as you can see here. Very nice. And then for exponential moving average, this is also included. Very nice. And then we also have Bollinger Bands. Very nice. And then RSI is at the bottom here. This also looks very nice. And then let's try to replay this. So Let's just use the default start date and then press play. So as you can see, it is indeed playing from that date. Very nice. And then I can pause this. I can skip to the next day like this. This is very interactive and everything just works. AI agents used to sound like science fiction, but in 2026, this has already become a reality. If you have been hearing about AI agents everywhere, but you're not sure what they really are, how they work, or where to even start, this playbook is exactly what you need. It's called AI Agents Unleashed Playbook for 2026 Success by HubSpot. This guide breaks down what AI agents really are beyond the hype. Not just chatbots, but systems that can think, plan, use tools, and run multi-step workflows on your behalf. One of the most useful parts is how it clearly explains the difference between chatbots and true agents. A chatbot answers questions, an agent takes a goal and delivers a result, like pulling analytics data, drafting content, and scheduling it automatically. The playbook also walks through the state of AI agents in 2026, where they already excel today and where human oversight still matters. It shows why the real power isn't replacement, but partnership. You'll get concrete real-world use cases across content generation, lead gen, customer support, and internal operations, especially for creators, solo founders, and small teams. There's also a super practical section on how to get started, including how to identify low-precision tasks that are perfect for automation, how to avoid over-engineering agents too early, and how to scale responsibly with human oversight. They even cover the most common mistakes people make, like over-automating too fast and exactly how to avoid them. My favorite part is the future-focused section on how AI agents are changing careers. Instead of doing all the work yourself, the winning skill in 2026 is becoming an agent orchestrator, directing AI systems while you focus on judgment, creativity, and strategy. You can read the full guide completely for free using the link in the description below. This resource was made by HubSpot, the sponsor of this video. Alright, now next, because this is multimodal, I'm going to upload this image and see if it can create a 3D animated scene from that. Use a single HTML file. Let's press generate. Alright, so here's what it gave me from just one prompt. This is pretty good. However, it decided to turn this into nighttime for some reason. And then the time up here, you can see it is like turning from dawn to morning to midday, but it's not actually changing the lighting. So that's something we need to fix. But as you can see, the cherry blossoms and the pagoda is not bad for just one prompt, especially if you compare this to the other state-of-the-art models. Now, interestingly, it decided to give me everything in Chinese, even though my prompt is completely in English. But anyways, next I just added, allow me to change the time of day and make sure the lighting actually works. So here's what I got from that. Here is noon. Let's change this to dawn. Very nice. So dawn looks like this. And then I can adjust this all the way until dusk and night. And here is what we get. Very cool. And I can move this around. Everything works. It's not bad. Now, of course, the pagoda can look better. I can prompt it further to add more details to the pagoda and also fix the top that is disconnected up here. But I mean, with just 2 prompts, this is already very good. All right, here's a fun example. Let's see if it can actually compose music. Now, the first step is I need to get it to create a piano roll interface before I can get it to create a song. So let's write create a piano roll interface where I can drag and draw notes on the timeline. Add play, pause, and other settings. Put everything in a standalone HTML file. Make sure it loads efficiently on a regular web browser. Let's press run. And here's what I got from just one prompt. So let me expand this, and here's the piano roll. It already added something by default, so let's play this. Now I can add additional notes here. So for example, let's add a few more notes like this, just as an example, and then let's press play. Alright, so that works, but that's not the point of this prompt. I want to see if it can actually compose something by itself. So next, I asked it to, by default, show a powerful, expressive 32-bar piano opus, rich in complexity, capturing the final performance of a master pianist. Let's see what it gives us. And so afterwards, let's expand this and see what it composed. Alright, I'm just gonna pause it there. It doesn't sound too good, I guess. There's a ton of dissonance in the track. It's not very harmonious. It sounds like the dude is dying or something, but let me know in the comments below. Does this sound like a powerful, expressive piano opus, capturing the final performance of a master pianist? Maybe this is actually good, but it's just a lot deeper than I can perceive. Alright, here's another fun example. Let's get it to create infinite terrain maps using this Perlin simplex noise. Users can share seeds to recreate worlds, toggle biomes, rivers, mountains, and climate simulation. Let's press generate and see what it gives us. How cool is that? It just built this in one prompt. I didn't need to prompt it further, but here we have this infinite map, which we can play around with. So here's just one seed. I can shuffle the seed for it to generate a completely different map. In fact, let me full screen this first and let's play with the settings. So here is one seed number. I can set this to another random seed and it would generate a completely different map for me. Very cool. And then let's adjust these toggles. So let's turn off biomes and here's what we get. Let's turn off rivers. So that removes the rivers. Let's turn off the mountains, which gives us that. And then let's turn off climate. I'm not sure what that does. So I can probably prompt it further to fix some of those issues, but there you go. Here's an infinite map creator that it made with just one prompt. I can also use my mouse to zoom in and out. Really cool. Alright, next let's also see if it can code up some games. So I'm going to get it to create a 2D platformer game similar to Super Mario. Make it look amazing. Put everything in a standalone HTML file. Use publicly available assets, models, and effects for the game. Alright, so it gave me this in just one prompt. I actually don't even need to prompt it further. And it added some really cool features like this parallax background, a dynamic sky gradient, procedurally drawn character, plus particle effects everywhere, smooth physics, 2 enemy types, bouncing slimes, and flying bats with wing animations, stomping mechanics. I'll try to stomp on some enemies when I play the game so you can see what this looks like. It even has coin collection, it has a live system, infinite procedurally generated levels. Wow. And it did all of this in just one prompt. Okay, I didn't need to prompt it further. So let's press on start game, and here is my character with a cape. Let's collect some coins. So the coin collection works, and let's try to stomp a character, so that also works. Let me try to stomp some additional characters. All right, now next let me try to jump across this. So that also works. Now if I fall down, then I die and I lose a life up here. There you go. Here is a 2D platformer game, which it just created in one prompt. It includes multiple enemies and infinite levels, and everything works. It keeps track of my lives, it keeps track of the coins that I get, and even the background looks pretty cool with this parallax effect. Now, of course, I can prompt it further to make the visuals even better, to add even more complexity to the game, but as you can see from just one prompt, this is already extremely good. This is definitely one of the best models out there in terms of agentic coding. Now, instead of coding up cool stuff, this can also help you with everyday tasks and help you do deep research. So for example, let's give it this pretty tricky medical prompt. Analyze the molecular pathology of dystrophin loss in this molecular dystrophy, compare therapies, and evaluate long-term functional outcomes from recent trials, include nice tables and charts. And here's what I got just from the chat feature. So it's very concise and straightforward. Here is the molecular pathology of this dystrophin loss. Here is the mechanism of everything. And then here it gives me a nice table of the molecular consequences of this. It's jam-packed with information. Next, it gives me a comparative analysis of therapies, and it even gave me this nice flowchart, which I can move around. And then here's a comparison of all these therapeutic modalities. It's really thorough and jam-packed with information. All right, and then afterwards, here is long-term functional outcomes, and then here is some more data on some recent trials. Now here's another chart, but it looks like it couldn't really code this up, so it just decided to give me this chart, but in raw text format like this, which is pretty cute. And then afterwards, it gives me a summary of the outcomes of all these recent trials, and then here's a conclusion and future outlook. So it's also great at handling like science and research related prompts. as I'll show you in a second from some benchmarks. Alright, final prompt. This is just a fun trick prompt that even trips up GPT. So the prompt is, I need to wash my car. The nearest car wash is 50 meters from my house. Should I just walk or drive there? And the funny thing is, for ChatGPT, it actually told me to just walk there. But of course, the answer is I should drive there because I need to wash the damn car. But if I plug this into GLM5, it was able to answer this correctly. It says you should drive. The primary goal is to wash the car. If you walk, your car remains dirty in the driveway. The car needs to be present to be washed. So that sums up some of my quick tests with GLM5. As you can see, this is an incredibly powerful and capable model, and GLM has always been my long-term favorite open source model. It's the one with the least amount of errors. It usually just gets everything correct in 1 or 2 prompts. Next, let's go over its specs. So compared to the previous version, GLM 4.5, GLM 5 is actually a lot larger. So they increased the parameter count from 355 to 744 billion parameters. So it's more than double the size. Now, this is a mixture of experts models, so think of it as like a team of agents working together at once. So when you use it at any given time, only 40 billion parameters of these 744 billion parameters are actually active and used. So even though it's huge, this is very efficient. Now here it says they also integrated this DeepSeek sparse attention mechanism, which was introduced by DeepSeek, and this lets it handle really long prompts or documents without needing as much computing power. Note that the context window of GLM5 is 200,000 tokens, and this is like how much information you can fit into your prompt at once. 200,000 tokens is roughly 150,000 words. Note that this is the same context window as Claude Opus, but this isn't the largest context window out there. For example, Gemini 3 Pro has a 1 million token context window. That means you can fit like around 700,000 words into the prompt, whereas GLM5 you can only fit like 150,000 words. Now, similar to DeepSeek, in addition to just training the models, they've also added reinforcement learning after this initial training stage to get even better, right? This is basically learning from feedback to improve its answers even more. However, this reinforcement learning training is quite inefficient, so they also developed a new system called Slime, which basically speeds up reinforcement learning training so it can improve faster, so it can improve even faster. Next, let's move on to its performance benchmarks. So here are some of the most widely used benchmarks to rank LLMs. And as you can see, GLM5, which is the blue bar, is pretty much on par with the top closed models out there. So Humanity's Last Exam tests an AI's ability to answer questions from some really obscure scientific domains. These are questions that most people don't know the answer to, but as you can see, GLM5 even outperforms the leading closed models out there. And then for SWE-bench, verified and multilingual, and terminal bench, this basically tests an AI's ability to do agentic coding, and as you can see, GLM5 performs pretty much on par with the top closed models out there. And then here are some other benchmarks for your reference, and then BrowseComp is a benchmark that tests an AI's ability to browse the web. And as you can see, it outperforms the rest of the models by quite a large margin. Here, we're comparing GLM5 head-to-head with Claude Opus 4.5. And as you can see, for most of these tasks, it's pretty much on par with Claude Opus. Here's another really cool benchmark called Vending Bench 2. This is a benchmark used to measure how effectively an AI model can run in a simulated vending machine business over a long period of time, up to a year. So this tests how good an AI is at like running and operating a business. It's given a balance, usually like $500, and it needs to make as much money as possible by performing all the tasks required to run a business, including like managing inventory, ordering products, pricing strategy, financial management, and of course, a ton of other business problem solving and decision making. But as you can see, GLM5 even beats GPT, and it's almost as good as Opus and Gemini 3 Pro. And then here are some other benchmarks for your reference. If you compare this with the other leading open source models out there, including Kimi K2.5, it's not even close. Like for most of these benchmarks, GLM5 just performs way better than Kimi K2.5, which by the way only came out I think like 2 weeks ago, so I hope you can feel the acceleration. Now those are just some of their self-reported benchmarks. Let's look at how this ranks in a third-party leaderboard called Artificial Analysis. So here you can see that indeed GLM is currently the top open source model out there, beating Kimi K 2.5, and it's almost as good as GPT 5.2 extra high as well as Claude Opus 4.6. It's only like 3 points away, and it even beats Gemini 3 Pro High. So this is incredibly impressive for an open source model. Now, what I find is even more attractive is the price. So with that level of intelligence, it's actually insanely cheap. Notice that Gemini is over 3 times more expensive. Same with GPT, Grok 4 is even more expensive, and Claude Opus will just make you broke. So I mean, in terms of efficiency, GLM 5 is the best bang for your buck. And this is actually the best feature of GLM5 that I haven't heard anyone talk about yet. It has by far the lowest hallucination rate out of all the models out there. So here is the artificial analysis, omniscience, hallucination rate, and the lower the score, the better. This means it hallucinates less. So as you can see, GLM5 out of all these models has by far the lowest hallucination rate. You can see like GPT 5.2 or Claude Opus is like more than double this amount, which means it hallucinates a lot more. Now note that this 34% means it got 34% of the answers wrong on this benchmark. This doesn't mean that it hallucinates 34% of the time when you use it. So I think this is actually the most powerful feature of GLM5. This is especially useful if you need to deal with very factually accurate information like for law or medical research. Alright, finally, let's go over where you can use this. Like I said, GLM5 is currently available for you to try for free on ZAI's chat platform. And of course, they've already open sourced this. So if you click on Hugging Face, the models are already out. However, note that this is like 1.5 terabytes in size, so no, you're not going to be able to run this on consumer hardware, but it's mostly for enterprises who really care about data security and privacy and running an AI locally on-prem. This is especially important because if you use any closed proprietary model like GPT or Claude or whatever, all your chats are sent to their servers, so they potentially have access to all your information. And that's the power of open source, is that you can run it privately and locally. Now, if you can run this and this is of interest to you, then on their GitHub, it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally. Now, in addition to this, you can also just subscribe to use GLM through their own API. And this is actually insanely cheap. The cheapest plan is like only $27 per quarter, so that's like just $9 a month, which is way cheaper than Claude. Now note that for API usage, currently they are rolling this out gradually to coding plan subscribers, but afterwards you would be able to use this in all these coding agents, including Claude Code. For those of you who aren't aware, you don't actually need to use Claude in Claude Code. You can switch to a much cheaper model. And then this also supports OpenClaw as well, which is like an agent that runs 24/7 on your computer. If you're not familiar with OpenClaw, see this video. Anyways, that sums up my review on GLM5. This is currently my favorite open source model. It's just so good at coding things with the least amount of errors, plus it has the lowest hallucination rate out of all the other models. And I personally use GLM in Claude Code and OpenClaw myself. Anyways, let me know what you think of this. If you've had a chance to play around with GLM5 yourself, what's the vibe that you got from it so far? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.